Welcome back to the Emerald Conference. Eric, you always have such a nice smile. I appreciate that. We're back at the Emerald Conference, Emerald Scientific, I call it. But it actually is just the Emerald Conference. And we are meeting all kinds of wonderful individuals, thought leaders, scientists, interesting companies. And we were pleased to meet you, Downing.
And your co-host, Destiny Blanco.
So I always forget to introduce myself, and in that I forget to introduce Destiny. But we are pleased to be joined by one of the interesting individuals that we've met here, Shane Green. Nice to have you on our show.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and Shane has a really cool machine, and he's one of the vendors here. He has the Hauschild SpeedMixer.
Yeah.
But before we get into what the Hauschild SpeedMixer is, everybody wants to know how, because there's so many different individuals from different careers, different worlds that migrate into cannabis, especially over the last 10 years, and they have a tremendous level of expertise. Tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got into the cannabis space and how you ended up in California.
Yeah, so I grew up in South Texas, surfing, which most people are like, surfing in South Texas, where does that happen? So
San Pedro Island,
yeah,
right?
Corpus Christi is a lot of wind. If there's wind, you get little waves, right? So as a young teenager, I used to travel to California to surf competition because you get invited out here. Of course, I didn't do very well in California because it's pretty competitive out here.
But
anyway, I growing up as a kid, I always said, as soon as I graduate from high school, I'm moving to California where there's good waves. 1988, packed up my pickup truck, landed in Cardiff by the Sea, California, and been there ever since. So I went to San Diego State school-wise, got a Bachelor's of Science in biology, and then end up starting my career at Callaway Golf in Carlsbad, California.
And what did you do for Callaway Golf?
I was in R&D doing polymer research for golf ball materials, specifically the polyurethane covers.
Wow.
And that's where I saw the Hauschild SpeedMixer for the first time.
That was back in the 90s.
That was 1998, 99, late 1998.
Okay.
A guy came in and did a demo. At the time, it worked perfectly, but at the time, the guy that brought in the demo was from manufacturing. We were R&D, and I don't know if you're familiar with the politics that go on in big corporations between R&D and manufacturing. But at the time, we did not purchase the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And then how did you get re-involved back with the machine? You left Callaway?
So I left Callaway after a little over 4 years in R&D, and I went to a big skateboard company. And so I was taking some of the polyurethane technology from the golf industry and working on making skateboard wheels. And as soon as I got into the skateboard wheel industry, I needed this mixer I saw. So I called up and ordered one and started using it to formulate skateboard wheels.
Now, who'd you call?
Who'd I call?
Yeah, what company? Mortar One?
Well, the company I worked for was SkateOne, which is the skateboard company.
Okay.
And so then I ordered one of these mixers to formulate skateboard wheels. The unique thing about these particular mixers with what I was doing was I only have about 20 or 30 seconds when you mix something together before it cures. And you generate a lot of air bubbles typically when you mix things. And so for what I was doing, you cannot have any air bubbles, which is pretty standard across a lot of industries. When you mix things, you get a lot of air bubbles. So mixing with this did not create air bubbles. I could do it in 20 seconds and still cast a perfect part.
So I know you didn't get into the cannabis industry with this machine until 2016. Give us a quick synopsis of what happened between your reintroduction of this machine in 2016.
So as being a user at the skateboard company, obviously I fell in love with the technology, and I ended up deciding to go work and sell the machine. So in 2007, I started traveling around, demoing the machine and selling the machine. So that started in 2007. So back then the machines were, the biggest ones we could do were like 300 grams. And now we're up to twin 10 kilos, big buckets, continuous vacuum.
For our viewers to understand, what exactly is this machine doing? So you're saying you were working with golf balls before. So what was the product actually being produced?
So we were mixing polyurethane for the cover of the ball and the skateboard wheels. But as far as applications go for the mixer, we're anywhere from making a coating for standard house paint to standard inks, to polyurethane rollers that are inside equipment, doing research on those, to medical devices, pharmaceuticals, explosives, batteries has been a really big application in the past 5 to 6 years, maybe even longer.
So how's this? And so 2016, you said cannabis industry need this. How did that?
Well, the cannabis industry is just like all the other industries. They're working with thick, gooey, sticky, expensive materials to process, and I thought it was a great fit that you could mix in something as small as this and still get maybe data for what you're doing. It just depends. Sometimes you need more for making a part. Sometimes you just need a little bit. Most of the time in the conventional mixing world, people mix a lot more than they need, because when you mix the blade or popsicle stick, or it sticks to the blade, it sticks to the container, and you're not left with any product.
Yeah, you're losing some product.
And you whip a lot of air into it. So the cannabis space is very similar to the silicones, epoxies, urethanes. They're heat sensitive. There's bubbles. They're trying to create a specific texture, or mix two things together that don't like each other, like an emulsion, and things that require a lot of shear.
Right.
These machines create a lot of shear with no cleanup.
So you first started looking at the cannabis space with this machine in 2016, is that correct?
Yeah, I sold the first one into the cannabis space in, I think it was early 16.
And then, do you remember what was that one used for?
What was interesting, because I went in there thinking we were going to end up working with kind of a blending different small samples for testing. Right?
Yeah, did they call you, or you decided to reach
actually,
out?
I was at a conference in Colorado, and
Yeah.
I met an interesting gentleman that thought this would be interesting to try out. So then I showed up at his lab and spent all day with his team, and it ended up working for something they had been trying to do forever, and it wasn't what I really went in there that I thought I was going to be working with. That's the beauty of the machine. It does things that you would never think you could do. It allows people to develop innovative materials that they thought they could never do.
Right.
Especially when you're dealing with really expensive. I mean, there's materials out there that, that can be thousands of dollars, a few grams, because it has precious metals in it. And so it's very hard to do research knowing that if you mess up, you're throwing that away. So if you can limit how much material you can mix during the mixing, then you can save a lot of money and and do a lot of research quickly.
And so what kind of cannabis products is this? Like I'm looking at gummies. You guys, does it do like, brownies?
Well, I mean, it just depends. I brought the gummies because it's kind of an impressive thing to see how it can take gummies and basically put so much energy and shear into them without a blade and basically melt it, right? So they're in the cannabis space, there's all kinds of interesting things from, taking distillate, blending different distillate together, very thick. One of the beauties of this machine is most people use heat as a crutch to get things to move because they need to thin them out where they can mix them. This machine is going to use more brute force to force things together, like a paste. So I don't need the heat to get it soft enough to move it.
Right.
I use energy. So in that sense, a lot of materials are sensitive to heat. So if we can mix things together without generating a lot of heat, then the integrity of the product can be much better.
So it's almost like I'm just kind of, my brain is making me think of like a jewelry cleaner. What's that system that uses the what is sonic?
Yeah, exactly.
Sonic power?
What's sonic power?
It's like a sonicator. So
sonicator.
It creates like a really interesting frequency kind of to where things, basically mix.
It's like it's constantly like almost. Also, I like to say vibrating.
Yeah. It's like a high-tech vibrator at frequencies that vibrate so fast that it actually moves things.
Yeah. What's that thing that spun in the biology class that we had?
Well, it's a
centrifuge.
Okay, so this is called a dual asymmetric centrifuge.
Yeah.
So centrifuge spins and separates things, right? So it creates this massive G-force for pushing higher density materials within something and separates them, right? So the heavier materials go to the bottom because you're pushing so hard. You go to the carnival ride, remember? You get on that ride and you stand there and it starts spinning. Next thing you're upside down and you're not falling, right? So the G-force keeps you in. So when you're spinning, you're pushing way down. So as this thing is spinning like a centrifuge, the cup is counter-rotating the opposite direction. So what that does, it creates an upside-down vortex, a mixing vortex in the cup. So when you say centrifuge, how does a centrifuge mix? That separates things. No, I have two motions going on. I have a dual asymmetric centrifuge.
Right.
Hence the word DAC, D-A-C.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
This
Pretty
is
cool, huh?
so far above my pay grade.
No, that's
I just
super
want to know
cool.
how it works.
No, but a lot of people overthink it. I mean, it's very. I mean, mixing is an art that's very similar in all kinds of industries, from the kitchen to everywhere. I mean, obviously it becomes more scientific as you get into different materials, but the art of mixing, it's an art of getting things to come together, no matter if you're in the kitchen baking. Like the order you put addition in baking in the kitchen can make it work or not work.
So what are the best uses in the cannabis industry, like recommended uses in the cannabis industry, or how people are
I would say one of the
it?
bigger workhorse things right now is producing vape oils. So introducing terpenes to distillate and creating a vape oil.
Right.
So and the beauty of that is you don't have to clean. You can change formulations without cleaning, and you don't have to use the heat to get.
So you
things.
can add your CBN in.
Yeah, you can add everything in. And
terpene.
I mean, you can have 50 different formulations lined up and use the same machine and no downtime between.
So most vape pen companies must have one of these. Something
It's
like it.
It's getting there. I mean, I think that as the technology becomes more and more recognized, and coming out of a lot of other industries. I mean, I think the cannabis is kind of a new, application for a lot of standard equipment that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people are reinventing the wheel and trying to figure stuff out all the time.
Yeah, always looking the ways, cut edge.
No, exactly. And I think this is the cutting edge of it's the cutting edge of mixing in general. And I think, the cannabis is a cutting edge space right now.
Were you going to be able to show us, were we going to do a demonstration?
Yeah, I can do a quick little demonstration.
Well, I mean, I'm excited. I want to
see how it works. I mean, just an example. I mean, we can go from, this would be just an example of mixing in different containers. A lot of the technology right now is moving toward, custom and mixing in packaging. So that allows us to mix directly in different packaging. I'm just going to
sneaky over here so I can look inside of it.
We'll drop it in. We'll close the lid and we'll hit start. So you hear a little bit of noise.
How cool.
Did it show up on the screen?
Yep.
We need a strobe light. We could have strobed it and you can watch it. And I'll use no lid.
Do some party.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. We've made
party strobes.
Makes good mixed drinks.
And so how long is this process here?
This one I'm going to let it run about 50 seconds.
50 seconds.
A lot of times, depending on what you're doing, I would say on average, most stuff's mixes in under a minute. Some stuff 20 seconds. Some things where you're dissolving, maybe you run longer. We just introduced a new machine, our Smart DAC series. It actually runs for 30 minutes. And within that 30 minutes, you're monitoring the temperature of the material so you can tell the machine to react. So if you tell the machine don't exceed a certain temperature or don't let the material get a certain temperature, the machine will respond. Bring in cold air, change the speed. So you can build this profile where you keep your material the exact temperature through a 30-minute profile, right? Instead of starting and stopping and cooling. And so it's really, and it's got strobe light. You can kind of watch it, run it from your phone.
That's a big deal for concentrates.
Yeah, it's going to be huge for the industry in a lot of industries, cannabis especially.
Is there companies that you're currently working with for concentrates?
What happens now?
It's ready.
Take it out.
It's ready. Whoa.
And then that's the gummy.
It changed a little bit of color too. Those are. How cool. So it's like, is it
smells really good.
Ooh, I kind of want to dip my finger.
No, go ahead. It's edible, man.
Oh.
That's like a holocaust of gummy bears.
That's the slime.
Yeah. You slaughtered.
Hey, it makes really good chocolates, like custom chocolates. I mean, it's crazy. You just put it in a cup and spin it, and sometimes you get the perfect thing.
He just murdered 20 gummy bears.
What did it do to the gummy bear?
It just created so much energy and shear that it created some heat and basically liquefied.
It is a little warm.
Yeah. I mean, people always are, how did it get warm? It's like, you can start a fire by rubbing two sticks together.
The friction.
Yeah, it's friction. It's shear, friction. So there's a lot of energy.
I'm worried about this now.
We can get technical.
Is it legal?
Mushrooms.
You can,
if you put 20 people in there.
People.
I sell to consultants. A consultant will buy one. He's doing some crazy project in his garage.
Do you have a spoon?
Yes, I feel as if
I should have did the chocolate. The chocolate one's cool.
I feel as if we should say some words for these gummy bears.
Now it's going to start. Obviously, it's going to start getting hard because it's cooling off now.
Yeah.
So if you don't want as much temperature, then you just control the method with the speed and the volume and what cup
but
you're
it's
using.
up front that
there's
turn
just
it down.
different techniques to get the speed to control the
temperature.
temperature.
So how did you guys figure out the perfect temperature for this?
Just trial and error.
Yeah.
So most materials are a little trial and error. I mean, obviously, I've been mixing stuff with these mixers for 22 years, so I've pretty much
You said you've done, lipsticks.
We do.
Skateboard wheels.
Lipsticks, skateboard wheels, paints, batteries, implant. I mean, there's a lot of things that are in people's bodies that are produced in this machine. Slow release drugs, silicone type formulations. Lots of all the dental composite materials.
Mm-hmm.
How much is a machine like this?
They start around 12,000 for a base desktop unit.
That's a base desktop unit?
Yeah, it can go anywhere from a couple grams maybe in a syringe if you want. We can get exotic and make fixtures for mixing and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, what's the biggest that it
Our
can
biggest
transform?
would be 10 kilos, so 20 kilos, separate batches. So 10 kilos per batch in a 3.5 gallon bucket.
Okay.
Bigger bucket if you don't want vacuum. And we do have machines that pull vacuum. So like the purging side of things where you're stripping off residual solvents with vacuum. You can run vacuum while you're mixing.
He's playing Play-Doh over here.
No,
it's fun. But it works great for Play-Doh too. Mixing Play-Doh, making Play-Doh.
It's cool. I was just thinking we should have named the gummy bears beforehand.
Because now we can,
and then we could like memorialize them.
So, but when you eat them,
he's like, this guy's really sensitive about gummy bears.
That's my little babies.
I like how you treat your babies. No, that
you know what? A lot of the little crazy little demos come from trade shows, right? Where people's got all these candies. Like we have some interesting with the Tootsie Roll and a Lifesaver that creates this chocolate mint Lifesaver thing. So it's just, it's kind of one of those things. It's really cool. You just throw it in a cup, spin it, and it could work perfectly, or you make a few tweaks to it. It's
super cool.
Really cool, and I'm sure the uses are just tremendous in the cannabis industry. So
sticky, expensive stuff.
You've
hard
been
to mix.
Selling for 8 years now into the industry, right?
Yeah.
So you have a lot of expertise. You can probably help people understand how to use it
Definitely.
better.
So how we usually sell a machine is we bring the machine to you, do an on-site demonstration with your materials where you can see it working your materials, or you come to our lab and we can perform demos there. In your case, it's a little harder to send material state to state.
Yeah.
Typically, we come to you with the mixer, work with you with your materials, and then when you buy a machine, we come out, set it up, and then we provide free technical support for a lifetime. Like if you have, hey, we're having a problem mixing some machine, I'll stop by, or maybe I can just answer over the phone. And sometimes it just requires you're using the wrong cup, or just some technical reasons why it didn't quite work. And
so this machine you said could be used for labs to break down the product, to test it, and then also just to I imagine just creating new products.
Yeah, creating new projects at R&D, creating test samples for analytical testing, and then obviously production.
And of course, at that point, when they're doing that for testing, it destroys the product.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still getting a little more understanding of how the test labs work. From what I'm hearing, like you may send 3 separate chocolate bars from a lot of a run, and then they have to test, chocolate bar 1, chocolate bar end, chocolate bar middle, a piece of each. They have to homogenize those 3, and then put it into their analytical testing.
How could we use this with the mushrooms?
I was saying,
we can grind.
That product, I could pour that into some silicone molds and throw my mushrooms in little microdoses on each one.
We can even grind up the mushrooms into a fine powder with these machines. I have sometimes I put.
So if I threw a full mushroom in that, what would happen to it?
If I throw just straight flour in there, it'll pulverize it, and all you're going to have is a bunch of powder with some stems.
Wow.
Now, if it doesn't work, obviously we always try.
So you turn the mushrooms into powder.
Turn the mushrooms into a perfect fine powder.
Let's buy one. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
And then a lot of times people are looking for.
We go violate the law.
This is for research use only.
Let's do a demo right now. You have some to test?
I might.
Do you have the ones I gave you?
No, I did. No, damn it! I have a perfect.
Man, I may have some. No, I'm just kidding.
We'll bring it by.
Yeah, we're going to test mushrooms.
Sometimes
you can come by the office.
Sometimes I'll put media in there, like grinding media, which is more like where you have beads in there pulverizing things. We have different devices that go into the cup if it doesn't mill itself.
Right.
Some stuff will just mill itself. You know what I mean? Like collides, like the gummy bears, and they didn't mill themselves, they melted themselves, like type thing. So the same concept of banging things together, and you create all this energy, and it turns into something else.
Very cool.
Yoda's just like, don't put me in that machine.
Yeah, we can put him in there.
What would happen? So this is a plastic product. What would happen to Yoda?
Yeah, what happens with plastic?
So sensitive
don't give this man Yoda.
Plastic or
you can hold Yoda, but don't give him to you. Oh wait, he wants to touch it.
Yeah. Well, plastic. What happens with plastic is it becomes
Yoda's
soft.
Like, don't let me go.
Put him in there.
Oh no!
You see what that man did to those gummies?
Yeah, we'll just.
Yeah.
Fun.
That's super cool.
So what would happen?
It's kept me really stimulated.
He turned into liquid, right?
Because I'm a technical guy, but it's like I get to go in, help people do all kinds of interesting things, from stuff that goes in space, in the body, to your lungs, to edible. I mean, the machine is in a very, very broad range of applications.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I can see why you fell in love with this. Pretty cool. It would liquefy Yoda.
No, it probably wouldn't, because he'll probably get soft and get weird and won't get hot enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I have some techniques where we can get him hot enough, but as far as just spinning him, he may not get hot enough. Now, if we chop him up in about 10 or 15 pieces, we may get him to come into one blob.
Chop me up, you say?
No.
He's gonna disappear. Got it.
Yeah, we've decided, or we've learned that Yoda here has a mind of its own.
Yeah, we wouldn't put Yoda in there. It would be very.
Well, we appreciate you. Well, your machine is really cool, and people should go to your website. What's your website?
Hauschild, SpeedMixer.com.
And learn more about it?
Yeah, you can find all kinds of videos. And, the best thing is give us a call. We'll bring it out to you and put your stuff in it.
I want to spend a whole day putting different things in there. Not Yoda.
It's crazy. It's really fun to do. You can blend your own seasoning. It works great for blending powders, mixing powders into liquids, making paste. It's an endless tool if you're working with.
Do you have any wild, unusual story that you're like, nobody knows that I did this, but I did this just?
Yeah, I've been down a 20-mile dirt road, 4-wheel drive, and show up with a guy in a pistol, in a golf cart, and wants to mix explosives in the middle of nowhere.
Really?
And
it mixed explosives well.
Oh yeah, we do. We're big in the energetic explosives. Explosives is typically a powder with a binder, and you're making a Play-Doh, right? So you're taking a liquid and a powder and making a paste,
right?
And that's one of the biggest claims to fame of this machine is making sealants. Which sealants is a polymer with a bunch of calcium carbonate, zinc, and all kinds of things. Sunscreens, lipsticks is huge. Bite lip. You can go and make custom lipsticks and these things.
That's amazing.
We learn something new every day. Well, we really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, that was fun. Thank you guys.
That was a super cool presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
And that was another episode of MITA Unshackled.